If you've been studying English for a long time and you've always studied English alone, and yet you don't know what's going on, you don't see the change, your English is not improving and you feel stuck, well, let's talk about the truth. Let's understand the reason behind this, why you're not improving. And if you study alone, especially if you're at an intermediate level, this video is for you. And I am teacher Prix, by the way. Make sure to subscribe if you want to learn how to go from stuck to fluent as fast as you can. I'm always posting different lessons, but let's cover good stuff. And this file you can see right here, you will be able to download it, the file, with all the content from today's lesson in the description of this video. But the first reason why that is happening to you, I will cover two main reasons, okay? And the first one is connected to your input and output process. They are not aligned. They are not working in sync, okay? They are not connected. So what I see nowadays with many English learners, especially if you study English alone, especially in that case, because if you have a teacher, if you follow an online program, it is easier to align the output and the input process. But if you're alone with your cell phone, that's how you study. I'm not judging. I know many students who do that. I learned English alone. I didn't have much technology at the time, but I learned English by myself. So this means, what is that supposed to mean? My input and my output process are not aligned. Let me show you two cases of students of mine who wanted to learn English and how this is connected to the first reason so that you understand, okay? Real case number one. This student is from my academy, and before my program, she was complaining that whenever she had to study simple past and other conjugations, she didn't know what to do about the explanations. And then when I asked her, okay, what do you do? Well, what did you used to do? Because now she's in my program. But then she explained to me what she did. And basically, let's see if this happens to you. She would grab a grammar book or a video on YouTube. She would see the explanations, she would do the exercises in the book, and that was it. And then she always had that feeling that it was not clear. She confused the tenses, past or present perfect or continuous, and the conjugations, and how am I going to use this at work? How am I going to talk about this? How am I going to use these verbs? She always had a lot of doubt, a lot of questioning whether that was it. So I did the lesson, I did the exercises. Is that enough? And then I picked a few verbs in the past and we started working on things she had done. And then I highlighted to her what I was doing because she had enough input. She had enough explanation. And input is important. It's important to watch those videos and get explanations. So she was getting those explanations, but she was not getting action. But it's not just any action. Yesterday, I bought a cup of coffee. Maybe that's true for you, but my point to her and to you as well is, how am I going to use all these beautiful verbs in the past to describe something that actually means something to me? How can I talk about a conversation I had with my colleague at work yesterday? How can I talk about this miraculous hair product I bought for my hair last weekend? And that's when the lesson connects with the output process, which is what you want. You want to talk to people about different subjects. You don't want to feel afraid to talk about specific topics. But to do that, you need a better combination of output and input, what you're receiving and what you're delivering. Another student of mine, she wanted to better understand native speakers. And before my program, she was listening a lot. She had a lot of listening practice. But they didn't work because she felt like when she sat down to watch a movie she liked, she couldn't understand. Even though throughout the week, she listened to podcasts, she followed teachers on Instagram, she was listening a lot, receiving and receiving and receiving. So what did we do? What did I do in this case? Maybe that's your case. I connect the input and the output. How am I going to use this listening experience? How am I going to connect this experience, this listening exercise with different practices? And also be able to discuss, to describe the content that I listened. What kind of listening exercises should I do? And then I showed her that simply listening will not be very effective. It is useful, yes, I agree 1000%, but it's not enough if you want to master your listening comprehension. And as she started doing the exercises, because you need exercises, you need proper micro-listening practice, shadowing practice, pronunciation practice, comprehension practice. Combining these strategies, she achieved her goal. She achieved what she actually wanted, which was to understand movies and TV shows. Because if you want to be fluent, you need both, okay? So when studying alone, most learners don't have a clear input process. And here, as you can see on the screen, we have the little boy there. He's with his phone. And I imagine many of you are like that. You have your phone, you're watching something on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, and then you see a message from your friend, and then you stop, then you go back, and you see another video or post about English, and that's how you roll. So your cell phone has become a source of infinite information, anywhere, anytime. However, you end up saving a lot of lessons, watching many disconnected micro lessons, and at the end of the day, you feel like you're stuck in the same place. You feel like nothing is changing because your process is very disorganized. Look at this picture. I think this picture is going to help you better understand. So that's you, okay? Maybe, can you see it now? Yes, I think you can see, yes. That's you. And as you're checking your phone, well, you have maybe a quick post about pronunciation, the TH sound, then you see another TikTok video or Reels about job interviews and what verbs you should use. Then you see another lesson talking, maybe from Teacher Prix, how to be more confident speaking in English, 21 days to boost your confidence. But then you see another post, phrasal verbs with get, the phrasal verbs native speakers use. So all of that, it's a lot of input. So in that, and you're walking down the street, you're walking downtown, or maybe you're on the bus, on the subway, maybe you have a coffee break at work, and you see those lessons. But that's a lot of information, infinite information. But it's very disorganized. And where is the output process? Where is the part that will make you fluent using the information you study? Where is the process? Where is the integration with your life? And this is why so many of you, this is the truth, why so many English learners who study alone, they go around and around and around in the loop of receiving information, saving, liking, and going to the next video without taking proper action. But maybe you do take a little action. But Priscilla, I take some actions. I'm there, I see the phrasal verbs, then I create a quick example and I post in the comments, or I speak something very quickly, but then I go on about my day. I go back to my tasks, to my activities. That is still disconnected. And I will continue this explanation, so make sure to stay with me until the end, okay? The second reason that will help you understand the truth why so many of you who study alone are still stuck, not making progress, is stuck at this loop of not getting better, trying hard, and then trying something here, trying something there, downloading a bunch of materials and not making progress. You make many grammar mistakes. And here I can include many grammar and vocabulary, okay? So we have the same, they are in the same category. You make many grammar and vocabulary mistakes because you studied grammar and vocabulary incorrectly. And I have another case here, another story. I'm not sharing the students' names, but these are students who have talked to me about that. It's not I actually want. This is the reason why I can't just say one name, because I've had a bunch of students who shared that experience with me. But this one in particular told me that she often studied grammar. Whenever she thought about, oh, let me study English, she immediately thought, okay, let me grab my grammar book, sit down and study the lesson, right? That's how you should do it. That's what they tell you to do. And it's not entirely wrong, but the materials that provide grammar lessons, grammar books, grammar videos, they are giving you information. And to give you information, I think that's valid, okay? Explanations, definitions, examples, that's great. But in this case, for instance, this student never understood how to actually use. She's the same example I was mentioning at the beginning, using the past, using the proper conjugations. So in one lesson, I told her what was wrong. Because books give you definitions, they give you examples, and they give you some really ineffective exercises. What is that supposed to mean? They give you some exercises, they're very common. Complete the sentences. Complete the sentence with the past of the verbs. Complete the sentence with the proper conjugation of verb to be. That's very common, right? But what is the problem with that? The problem is that those phrases, those exercise drills, those grammar drills are not connected to your life. So you don't learn to create phrases, you learn to complete phrases that do not relate to what you're doing, to what you're living, to what you actually need English for. So you see those book examples that you will never be able to implement. So you completed the phrase with the past of the verb because that's what the exercise tells you to do. But in real life, you have to create, because fluency is about creating your phrases, not completing phrases, not copying phrases or repeating phrases. You need to train your mind to create your phrases and connect the ideas, contrast the ideas, explain your ideas. So this student was struggling with the past because she knew a verb, but she didn't know how to connect that verb to describe different events in her life, to give proper sequence, to give proper connection. Why? Because she never practiced that. Well, she learned connectors, but consequently, she didn't practice connecting the ideas to talk about herself. And vocabulary is the same process. You learn many different words. If I go back to the picture where there are many clouds and the little boy is studying different subjects on one day, in one day, you're checking out many different contents. The same happens to vocabulary. You see a word in a book, maybe you see a vocabulary lesson, 10 expressions about money. Then you see the phrases where you have to put the correct expression with the based on the lesson you studied. So you have to complete the lessons, right? Let me complete the phrases with the 10 expressions that I learned about money. Great. But then what happens to you, your life, your experiences, and those expressions with money? How do you actually use those expressions with money, with many other different subjects? If you don't establish a practice where you force your mind to create your phrases, to use those words, phrasal verbs, expressions, and many other words in the English language to talk about yourself, then you will not improve. So the truth is, studying grammar completely alone or vocabulary completely alone will be very tricky, okay? It can be a little confusing because you will get all the answers right in the book. You do the exercise, you get the answers right, or maybe you use artificial intelligence. They give you some exercises, you get them correct. Yay, hooray, I did it. But getting the answers right in the book, or online does not equal understanding how to use. One thing that I talk about with my students in my academy is how can I use this expression I learned to talk about myself, to talk about my life. That's what matters, okay? And if you understand what I'm saying right now, tell me here, I got it, okay? Or better, I got what you mean. Let's see people who are actually paying attention. I got what you mean, okay? I got what you mean. That's a nice one. I get what you're saying. Another one, okay? I get what you're saying. By posting this right now in the chat or in the comments, I will understand that you were here paying attention and you get what I'm saying, okay? Let's see how many will reply with, I get what you're saying. I got what you mean. I got you, sister or teacher. So with this student, with the proper guidance, she was able to use the past and talk about things that happened to her. And she was very excited about that because it was simple. I'm not saying that you will remember all the verbs you study, all the expressions, that your grammar will be flawless. No, that's not true. But if you improve the process, you speak more, and that's what I want for you, okay? And this is something that I like doing with my BSA. This is a message from a student of mine. I have the print here, but it's too small, so I'm going to read it for you, okay? Teacher, anyway, I'd like to let you know that the module was fantastic. The part in which you suggest us to look for the images on Google and make the association and the memory work so much better for me. So with my students, I didn't correct anything, okay? This is her original message. I teach my students how to make image and memory association to help them improve their learning progress. So she says that she has tried to learn new words in that way, and she also enjoyed the part where they have to record themselves. It was very useful. Finally, all the words you picked up work so great together that I find myself able to create a topic with just those words. I spent more than an hour, but I feel more confident for the first time. I feel I have deeply learned something that will not just vanish from my mind in a week or two. Thank you, teacher. So here, what am I teaching her? I'm teaching output. I'm teaching how to use, how to talk about your stories, how to talk about your life, how to learn so that the words don't vanish, don't disappear. But anyway, let me continue. And before I do, if you're finding value in this lesson, help me grow. Help me send this message by sharing this video with a friend. And if you're interested, my study plan will bring a lot of clarity in the way you study. You can purchase my ebook on the study plan, how to organize the way you study, practical lessons, as well as some interesting bonuses. You can get the link. You can get my study plan in the description of this video. But now, what should you do? What should you do, my friends? Let's talk about that, okay? There are 4 key elements that will help you achieve English fluency much, much faster if you're consistent. Inconsistent work will not be good around here. So the first one is structured and repeatable plan cycle. So you need to follow a structured and repeatable plan cycle. What is a structure? You know the structure. You can change the subjects, but you follow the same structure. You can repeat the same structure. That is actually what I teach in my study plan and in my academy in case you're interested, okay? But you need a structured and repeatable plan. You follow the same structure and you repeat that plan. You only change the subjects. That way you bring clarity to your input process and consequently the output process. Daily speaking prompts. When I say daily, let's respect your schedule. If you're available to study every day, wonderful. If you're available to study 3 times a week, wonderful. So adapt, okay? That's something I talk to my students in my academy, in my study plan. You need to adapt to your reality. You're busy. 3 times a week is good enough for you? There you have it, okay? You need to connect the daily speaking prompts, the speaking practice, even if you are alone, needs to be done. And I structured and repeatable plan cycle will show you how to do that, okay? Because what is a structured plan? You need to work on all the English skills. And the 4 skills are reading, writing, listening, speaking, but I like to include grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation in the mix. So your plan needs to structure these practices so that you can include speaking in every practice you have, while connecting with something that you actually care about every week or every 10 days, every 15 days, you decide. Output-focused method. If you follow a structured plan that forces you to speak, that is output-focused. So I study a grammar, I use a grammar lesson, I have to study that lesson. I see a video, I have to talk about that video. I read a page, I have to talk about that page, or I have to write about that page. That's output-focused method. You never just receive information, you find a way to use that information. That's key. And feedback. Truth. Difficult pill to swallow, but feedback is important. Okay, and with the students in my academy, I provide that. I correct their speaking exercise, I correct their vocabulary work, their grammar work, because they are creating phrases, talking about themselves. But if you're alone, of course you can use AI. AI can be a wonderful tool, but one thing that I have noticed based on my students' feedback is that AI doesn't bring them the clarity that oftentimes they're searching and the confidence so that it can go and talk to real people. And also the AI feedback can be a little bit confusing. It doesn't filter what needs to be filtered. So you need to watch out for that. But it is a resource. You can use it, but just use it wisely. So your week cannot be random, disconnected when you organize the content you study. Okay? If you want to speak and understand why you're using advanced vocabulary, you need a clear target. You see the little boy here with the arrow? You know, the bow and the arrow hitting the target? That's what you need if you want to be fluent. Everything must be connected with daily speaking practices. Short speaking exercises every day will help you. Everything you read and listen must be used. Output-focused method. Everything must be connected, structured, repeatable plan. And feedback is important. When studying alone, as I said, that can be tricky. You can use AI. You know, I do that with my students. I correct their work. I give them feedback. But if you're alone, you can use AI, but it won't give you the real confidence you're looking for in terms of compared to what you get when you have a human being providing you feedback, providing you experiences, because after all, you want to learn English to talk to real people, not just a machine. You want to talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as I said, you can download this material here, okay, in the description of this video, and get the links to purchase my plan or join my academy. They are also available in the description of this video. Other than that, I hope you share this video with a friend. And remember, I got what you're saying, okay? I get what you're saying. I want to know in the comments. I get what you mean, Teacher Prix. I got you, sis. And share this with a beautiful soul. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.